see, Ken, I'm looking for you right now.
Almost there, almost there. All right, hold on.
Let me
Hold
give
on.
you co-host.
Here's that. Start the video. There we go.
I
Oh,
gave you that
we're doing
background.
this again, man.
It must be
What
a
did we do to
setting.
solve
It
this
must be
last
a
time?
setting on my end that
Oh, here we go. Choose virtual background. None. There
it
we
might
go.
be because I assign you as a co-host and it just gives you my background now. Because yeah,
Got it.
I think that's what it
Got it.
is. It's all good. That's why we join in a little early.
Yep.
Get it figured out.
Well, how you doing, man?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Good.
Can you? Oh, by the way, can you see me right now?
I can see you and get this. I can see your screen. So,
Perfect.
but here's the thing. I could see you last time too.
Well,
So,
well, for those of you that are in here right now, we had there's always something going on in with the tech, and that's why we joined in here earlier to try and figure that out. And well, last time he could see me, I could see him, and then we recorded the meeting. And after the fact, when I was watching the recording, I can only see I can only see your face the entire time. So hopefully
yeah.
that's different today. But if if it happens again, that is what it is. But
It is what it is. It's all good. The
but
content is what matters, right? So they
exactly,
don't need to see our ugly
exactly.
faces.
Yep.
So that works
And
out.
today is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, it will be. I think it will be. I think I told you. Yeah, I told you briefly about what I'll share today, kind of with the dad in the doctor's office, and
Yep.
I feel bad about that because he was just being a good dad, just trying to, but it's kind of a crazy story. So
I'm excited for that one, and obviously, I mentioned to you my friend of a friend that was an EMT, and the needle stick that occurred when he was dropping a patient off, and yeah, you know
yeah,
what, he did luck out, obviously, but I always say it could always be worse. But
100%. Yeah,
no,
it's
I
true.
can't wait to share that one. And
Yeah, that'll be a
well, we
good
got
one.
about a couple minutes here. We'll wait a few more minutes. Looks like people are still joining in.
Hey, if those who have joined in early, I'm just kind of curious from own edification, if you can put into the chat box maybe a hand raising or something like that, let us know if you've attended one of these webinars here recently, one of ours. If you could raise your hand and let us know in the chat, that would be awesome. It just sort of helps us figure out the scope and if we have some new attendees here as well. So, yeah, if you are unfamiliar with kind of how these webinars go, they're a little unique, a little bit different. It's more of a value added fire chat, I like to call it. So it's not boring content, none of that, right? It's going to be a little more conversational where we all learn in a very short period of time exactly what needs to be done and the things that need most attention to. So yeah, like I said, if it's your first time here, first time guest, let us know, raise your hand in chat, but we'll get started here in exactly 1 minute.
Thank you, Ken.
Nice. 3.
All right.
1, 2,
I'm getting these
3,
notifications
4,
over here too.
5, 6.
All right, perfect. Well, this
Good
is
deal.
what? Is this our third edition now? This is our third episode?
This is edition 3. Yeah. So the
Yes.
pressure's on not to make it horrible, right?
Right.
So.
The goal is to slightly improve each one, right?
Right. Exactly.
But no, that's great. We got a lot of hand raises here. That's great.
Yeah.
Must be doing something right.
That's it. Good deal.
Cool.
Thank you guys. All righty, cool. Well, we got
Ken,
we got about a good 20 seconds.
see screen, correct? Just wanted to make sure.
You're good, man. I've got your screen. I've got
Perfect.
you, and we've got time at 1:35. So
Perfect.
It's all you, brother. Go right ahead.
Well, let's get it going. Hey, good day, everyone. Hey, thanks for joining us again on our third edition of this series, which is the compliance step-by-step webinars. My name is Ray Walters. I'm going to be your host, and I'm joined by my co-host and local business owner, Mr. Ken Wood. We're here to help you step by step keep your practice more compliant than yesterday by providing education and creating awareness through these webinars. Today's topic we will be specifically addressing the crucial aspects of handling and disposal of sharps. Ken, this subject is the utmost important in the utmost importance in the healthcare settings to ensure the safety of both healthcare professionals and patients. Ken and I are going to be providing insights, information, and resources to empower you to protect against sharps injuries and foster a culture of safety. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Those of you that have been on the webinar, oops, went a little too far ahead. Always have this slide after that title slide. Just want to give you guys just a brief background of EPICompliance. This platform has been developed by leading healthcare professionals since 2013, with over 40 years of combined knowledge in the healthcare regulatory space. We offer tailored compliance solutions for healthcare organizations and business associates. We've also started EPIConferences, which is an in-person event that we're hosting for compliance and innovation. But one of the really cool things that we were doing at this conference was hosting an in-person certified HIPAA security officer training program. And not to get too far in the weeds, because again, we're talking about OSHA today, right? But again, those of you in the healthcare space, whether you're a physician, the owner of the practice and management, or maybe you're the compliance officer, HIPAA is a huge deal. This is a in-person training that we are going to be offering online soon. So again, if you've been on previous webinars, I always mention this, stay tuned. It's going to be really cool stuff, really good course, and it's going to give you a whole deeper perspective into HIPAA and HIPAA compliance. So stay tuned on that. Objectives. Let's define some of the objectives that we're going to be discussing today. So today we will be defining what we mean by sharps. We're also going to be diving into the statistics behind sharps injuries and potential consequences that it can lead to. We also want to identify specific activities to prevent sharps injuries. And then also, again, I mentioned this earlier, we want to encourage the fostering of a culture of safety and accountability in your healthcare setting. So what is a sharp? So the medical terminology for sharps is devices with sharp points or edges that can puncture or cut skin. I've listed just a couple common examples here. Obviously, in the healthcare setting, disposable syringes, suture needles, wing steel needles, intravenous catheter stylets, phlebotomy needles, and scalpels, right? Very common examples. Also want to shed some light on the statistics, right? So, and by the way, guys, I'm always getting this information from either the OSHA.gov site or I'm going straight to the National Library of Medicine. So that's where I got this this reference from, this information. Just want to give you guys a brief glimpse of some of the critical statistics related to sharps injuries. There's an estimated between 600 to 800,000 needle stick injuries annually. And what's shocking about that is approximately 50% go unreported. That's huge. These injuries result in over 1,000 serious infections annually, including hepatitis B, C, and HIV. Another shocking statistic here, what I found is 54% of these reported cases actually involve nursing staff, right? So nurses, not to knock on you, we got to do better, right? We got to find a way to do better. The risk of hepatitis B transmission ranges from 6% to 30%, depending on the source's patient antigen status. And then, oops, went too far. Apologies. For hepatitis C, the risk is between 0.4% and 1.8%. And then obviously the risk of HIV transmission is a 0.3% chance.
And real quick, Ray, if we can
Yes.
stay on this side for
Yeah,
slide for
absolutely.
1 second, there's some data points in here I kind of want to expound on with just a short verbiage, sort of short story, so to speak.
Sure.
Ray, I know you have one as well, but I'll get right to it. When we look at the statistics, especially when it comes to the hepatitis B, C, HIV type of infections, we had, this must have been, I guess, probably 15 years ago, maybe 14 years ago at this point, I was working for a pediatric clinic here in town that required me to kind of go in and digitize the records. So I had the job of getting all these physical records and digitizing them. So what happened during this period of time was I walked back into sort of the just behind a triage room, and one of the doctors was sitting there with his hands in his head, and I'd never seen him like this. He was usually a pretty stoic individual. Well, it turns out what had happened was a well-meaning father who was there taking his 3 or 4 year old son in for a shot. Was in the room, as they do, getting prepped. Son is sitting up on the bed, and the nurse came in and grabbed a syringe out, and it was before it had filled the syringe at all, but it had unraveled the plastic sterile wrap from the syringe and left it on the counter. Said, "I'll be right back," which is a big no-no, right? You can't leave that sort of object open to patients unsupervised. Now, the son, as you'd imagine, being 3 or 4 years old, was panicky, very worried about the impending doom that is a shot. And the dad, in an effort to calm his son, took the syringe and put the syringe in his arm, actually physically punctured himself with the syringe in his arm, showing his son to see it doesn't hurt. It's a very fine needle. And I think that's probably crossed my mind as well with my daughter, just trying to prove to her, do anything to get her to calm down. But what had happened was he took this syringe out. His son was a little more, at ease that his dad had just done this very same thing. Well, the nurse had come back from the triage room to grab, I guess, a few alcohol wipes or something that was missing, and found that the syringe had been removed from its sterile packaging. Did not ask a question about it. She proceeded with executing the shot, the injection. About 2 weeks later, no, it wasn't 2 weeks, it was 2 days, 2 or 3 days later, that same boy and his father came back in, and the boy's arm was black and blue at the point of the injection, and everything that had where that injection had occurred, and it was black and blue. I am not sure what happened from that, but I do know that the site was infected. And I have to believe that it was probably infected from the dad just doing what a good dad would try to do, but it did create an issue for his son. And I'm sure, unfortunately, my job had already ended at that point when all this finally came to fruition. I'm sure there was a liability issue at play there. And unfortunately, I wish I had more info on that, but it just got me thinking about it with the sharp needles, how many patients and how important it is to ensure that that supervision is there and that you're not leaving needles unattended, because that is a contributing factor to needle stick injuries and the infections from needle stick injuries that you see here in the National Library of Medicine that you see from 2010. So it is definitely a contributing factor to that. But go ahead, Ray. I wanted to share that.
No, I appreciate the story, and yeah, man, it just it makes you wonder what the outcome truly was, and like you said, is good dad trying to be a good dad, right? But ultimately, it comes down to accountability, and like you said, you can't leave those things unattended, right?
Right.
Bottom
Exactly.
line. And having said that, we'll dive into the next slide where we're going to talk a little bit about the consequences, from these things. So, and this is a story that I wanted to share as well. It's this actually happened here in we're based out of Florida. In particular, this happened out of Jacksonville, Florida. I have a friend of a friend. He was an EMT. He's going to fire school. He's working as an EMT, and he was picking up a patient from a assisted living facility, dropping him off at the hospital for a checkup. This person was a type 2 diabetic, and long story short, when they were picking this woman up, she had a plastic bag full of her belongings, and in that plastic bag there was a used syringe, or used it was a used I guess a diabetic needle, you can call it. Long story short, he had gloves on, rubber gloves, but obviously when it comes to needles, that's not going to be much protection. And
Right.
he got stuck grabbing that bag as he was dropping the patient off. And what was the consequence of that? Well, a lot of that kind of goes into what I've listed out here. he had to get tested for Hep B, HIV, etc. And immediately when these things happen, by the way, um, they had to make him take this medication. Forgive me, I'm not a physician, but it's called prophylaxis, and it's basically a medication that you take within, I think, a 48 to 72-hour range if you were, if you come in contact with a patient that could potentially have HIV, whatnot. It's supposed to essentially stop, stop the virus from transferring, etc. But there's some extreme side effects to that. He was out of work for about 3 weeks, and on top of that as well, he had to do a bunch of follow-up appointments, and at the end of the day, he probably spent, I think, around $2,000, just from medications, appointments, etc. And not to mention, he was out of work for roughly, I think, it was 3 to 4 weeks. So, and obviously his mental, you know, he was not too he wasn't feeling too good about that, right? And obviously it was an accident. Things happen, but there's severe consequences that can come with it. Thankfully, it did get reported to OSHA. There was no violation or anything like that. They did their due diligence. They didn't sit on these things. And that's another thing, accountability. When these things happen, listen, got to report it. Don't wait around. The more you wait around, the more, there could potentially be fines involved, right? And anyways, that's sort of my story. It did end on a good note. Like I said, he was able to continue working. He didn't test for any Hep B, Hep C, HIV. Everything was good, but definitely an eye-opening story. And but anyways, diving into these consequences, like I said, I'll provide a little bit of examples. Obviously, there were some that came from my story, but always a possibility of contracting serious diseases like Hep B, HIV, and others. Um, you know, as I mentioned as well, if something was to occur, this obviously, you have to do your due diligence, get lab tests, follow-up appointments, make sure that like I said, make sure that you ensure that you don't have any of these diseases. Obviously, there's expenses that come with that. I mentioned my friend's friend paid somewhere around $2,000 for those treatments. Um, you know, and then obviously he was in the impact loss of productivity due to the that injury and recovery time. He was out of work for about 3 to 4 weeks. Consider amount of paperwork and documentation for these kinds of things as well. Obviously, when these things happen, you got to keep a log of it, got to report it. And like I said, these things can take an emotional toll as well. He wasn't feeling too hot, for that month, we'll say. But like I said, ends on a good note. He's back. He's actually a firefighter now. This happened about 2 years ago. So he's doing well. But anyways, wanted to share that story with you guys. Move on to the next slide. So enactment of the Needlestick Safety Act. And again, CFR 1910 dash, or I'm sorry, 1910 10-30 is the Code of Federal Regulation. It states that the Needlestick Safety Act is a pivotal development in occupational safety and health regulations. Some key details from this act: it was signed into law on November 6th of 2000. Obviously marking a significant milestone in the prevention of needle stick injuries. The key to these provisions of the act went into effect April of 2001. Obviously, the primary goal of this act was to reduce the risk of needle stick injuries by promoting safer work practices and the adoption of innovative safety technologies, which we're going to talk about here in the next slide. So some of these provisions from this act, obviously engineering and work practice controls. For example, the use of safety engineered needles and needleless IV systems that can minimize the risk of sharps injuries. Proper sharps handling is crucial. Healthcare professionals must receive additional training now on how to safely handle and dispose of sharps, such as use needles, etc. Another thing that this act initiated was utilizing sharp boxes to safely dispose of sharps. In healthcare settings, these containers are usually placed, for easy disposal of used needles, and obviously to ensure a safe environment, safe containment mechanism as well. Maybe many of you might use a medical waste company for these as well. Um, Another thing as well that they enacted, keep a sharps injury log. Healthcare facilities now must maintain detailed records of sharp injuries to track trends and develop prevention strategies. Um,
And can I say something on that, Ray?
yeah.
Because and I want to reiterate this, guys. There's a common theme that you're going to notice from the very first webinar we're talking about fire extinguishers to our
Yes.
last one to this one. There's a common theme that you guys should identify and know moving forward is that document. That part where it says Sharps injury log. Ensure that you are logging everything, because that log likely at some point could be your lifeline for that. So it's a fourth bullet point in this, but we don't want to go over it like it is or brush over it. It is a very important part. So be sure you document. Go ahead, Ray.
No, absolutely good point. And if that's something that you guys need to look up, listen, they got these things on OSHA.gov, these logs and whatnot. You can certainly get them from there. Keep going. And obviously technology and safer medical devices. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the adoption of needleless IV connectors, safety engineered sharps devices is a good example as well. Um, Employee involvement and fostering a culture of safety is critical. And this involves training and engagement to ensure healthcare staff is actively participating in these safety measures. Going back to Ken's story, that healthcare worker, may have known that that needle was moved, may have not have known, right? Um, you know, had they, what's the point I'm trying to make here? Um, be accountable, right? Be
Yep, exactly.
accountable. If something didn't look right, it might have been worth, asking a manager, asking somebody, hey, I think this needle was tampered with. Let's get another one, right?
Yeah, and let's just call a spade a spade. I mean, don't sometimes you have to ruffle feathers. It doesn't
Sure.
mean you're intentional or you're trying to be. I think that's the point you're making. Is like, look,
Yes.
that nurse she very having admitted that she knew that something was off. She should have stopped and said, "Sir, did you tamper with this needle? It's clearly been moved. It's in a different position." But in our human component, not wanting to ruffle, as you say, feathers and get into an altercation, people tend to avoid it. But in reality, the avoiding it could create a potential issue. So it's one of those
Sure.
situations, particularly in healthcare, especially in one that's highly regulated, both by OSHA and HIPAA, where you need to be on guard. You need to be on guard because it's your job, it's the practice, it's the doctors you work for, it's the employees that work for you as a doctor. There's a lot on the line. So don't be afraid to ruffle feathers. You're not being mean. You're simply addressing a problem that could very likely grow into something much, much worse. So
No,
don't be
good
afraid to
point.
ruffle feathers.
No, good point. Good point, Ken. And then last but not least, I've hit on this point several times, but training is also important as well when it comes to these things. Going back to my story about my friend's friend, the EMT company that he was working for, when they had to contact OSHA and obviously report the needle stick, one of the things they did ask for is if they had an annual OSHA bloodborne pathogen training, which they did. But again, that is another huge thing. They want to, again, OSHA, they want to see that you guys are trained and educated in these areas, especially when it comes to bloodborne pathogen training. So if that's something that you haven't looked into this year, certainly recommend it. It's a big deal. Um, so let's sort of recap what we talked on here. To effectively address sharp injuries, we suggest that you implement the following solutions. Again, work practice controls and engineering controls, adherence to universal precautions, which means treating all patients and bodily fluids as potential infectious hazards. Post-exposure evaluation and follow-up. This includes immediate evaluation, follow-up care for healthcare workers who experience sharp injuries. Ensure that your team receives the annual training and education. Also, keeping healthcare professionals informed is crucial in maintaining a safe environment. And then last but not least, foster a culture of safety in your healthcare setting. Again, this is achieved. This isn't a one-man. This is a team effort. This is achieved by promoting safety at the top priority in your organization's value and practices. And going back to the OSHA training as well, according to OSHA.gov, any new hires with your organization are coming on board have to have that OSHA bloodborne pathogen training completed within 10 days. So again, that is what OSHA wants to see. Something to keep in mind, when you're onboarding new employees, make sure that they're getting that training done.
Can you do me a favor, Ray? Can you reiterate that 10-day point one more time? There's a couple of people want to hear that again.
Yeah, absolutely. So those that might have just joined in, according to OSHA.gov, when it comes down to OSHA training in general, any new hires, anybody that is just getting hired on with a company, make sure that they get their OSHA training completed within 10-day period. That is a requirement, a federal requirement from OSHA. They want to see that being done.
Yes, there you go. Perfect. And I just put that in chat as well for everybody that wants to reference that. I know that's come up a couple of times. So that verbiage is right there in chat for you.
Yeah. And, listen, we want to make these webinars informative, but hey, we're also here to help. And, when it comes down to these OSHA trainings, listen, we offer this training free of charge. I have the link here on the slide. We'll be sending this to you guys in an email as well. EPICourses.com. There is a free OSHA for healthcare and bloodborne pathogens course. You can register. Again, no gimmicks, completely free. Your staff can register, take the course, take the lecture, take the test, and you get a downloadable PDF certificate at the end. So again, highly encouraged. Maybe those of you that have not taken the training this year or considering training methods, take a look at that course. And as I mentioned, we'll be sending you that in an email as well. Now, if you're an organization that, looking for a more all-encompassing training for your staff, again, we're talking about OSHA, right? But when it comes down to compliance, have to be HIPAA compliant as well, especially if you're dealing with patients. We do have an all-encompassing training bundle that includes not only just the OSHA, but HIPAA privacy, HIPAA security, and waste, fraud, and abuse training as well. For those of you that are interested, I know we mentioned this earlier, document. When it comes down to the needle sticks, pretty much everything we've talked on, right? Electrical safety, fire extinguishers. They want to see that you're keeping log of these things. We also have an all-encompassing system that sort of provides these documents for you, these logs for you, so that you're essentially keeping everything in one place, compliance related. That'll be our EPICompliance Pro. And hey, if you're a healthcare business and you're not sure where to start when it comes to compliance, listen, we're here to help. We can always schedule a one-on-one consult with you, go over your needs and see what, see what's the best fit for you. But like I said, above anything else, free OSHA training. If you haven't taken your OSHA this year, highly recommend taking a look at that. That is it for today's presentation. Yes, we've went a little over today. That's okay. We are going to open for just a short Q&A.
Exactly.
Yeah, go from there.
Yeah. Let's do that, guys. Hey, thank you everybody for jumping in. This is the Q&A portion, as Ray alluded to. Ray, we do have one question. Actually, did just pop here in chat. Is OSHA annually required? OSHA annually required?
Yes, it is. It is annually required. That is correct. And as I mentioned, as far as new employees go, new hires, make sure they get the training done within 10 days. And then anything after that is annual.
Love it. Nice. I got another one here. It says, can you provide an example of work practice controls in a healthcare setting to prevent sharps injuries?
Yeah. in healthcare, say that question one more time.
Yeah, no, sure, for certainly. It says, can you provide an example of work practice controls in a healthcare setting
Mhm.
to prevent sharp injuries?
I'm trying to remember what the term was called, and this is actually coming from another friend of mine who's a nurse. But work practice controls could include the adoption of, I think it's called no hands passing techniques when handling needles. So, in other words, instead of directly passing a needle from one healthcare professional to another,
Yeah.
you sort of put in a designated safe zone or a needleless IV system used to transfer these medications, and obviously that reduces the risk of needle stick injuries, and this practice emphasizes
And
safe
I
handling and
think that is
disposal.
that would that be considered probably the most primary cause of needle stick injuries is simply just the pass from one to another.
I'd honestly like to look into that a little more. Maybe that's
Okay.
something I can dig up on the OSHA medicine site. But that's a good question. I'm not
That is.
100% sure, but I would think that it could be.
Yeah, Shay, I'm going to answer you directly here in chat. We appreciate you asking that question. She had asked, what are we finding in is the primary cause of needle stick injuries in healthcare? And we'll jump back on that, Shay, for sure, because I
Yeah,
think
Shay,
that's going to
appreciate you
break
sharing.
down per industry. Shay actually said we're finding that a lot of our reported injuries are due to employees that are understaffed and moving too quickly. So yeah, it would seem like it is that transition from one to another, rushing that happens,
Sure.
particularly in healthcare, quite a bit. So, Shay, we're going to look into that some more. That's really good food for thought.
No, great question,
Uh,
Shay. Thanks. We'll certainly get in touch regarding that. Yeah, absolutely.
Another one I had come in: how can we promote a safety culture in a healthcare setting, as mentioned in the presentation? Yeah, it's a big one. How can we promote safety culture in a healthcare setting that's already saturated with regulations? How can we effectively do that?
I would say I think I got four responses to that, three or four responses to that. I would say open communication, right? You want to encourage, obviously those that are business owners or healthcare managers, you want to encourage your staff to report these incidents, these near misses, without any fear of retribution or, anything of that nature. Um, you know, appointing safety champions as well, or leaders who can advocate basically they can advocate
Mm,
safety and act as role models within a company. Um, another huge thing I always allude to is training and education, right?
yeah,
Um, you want to provide and again, as we mentioned earlier, we want to provide this sort of training on an annual basis, right? That's the federal requirement. So providing comprehensive safety training for all your staff, and obviously emphasizing sharp safety on that. Again, our free OSHA course does provide this sort of comprehensive sharp safety training, and talks about bloodborne pathogens as well. If you don't have a sort of system or a program in place right now, highly recommend that.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
obviously, continuously improving as well. Nothing's perfect, right? But always review your protocols, your policies on an annual basis, based on feedback, and that will allow you to continuously improve.
Nice. And we'll finish up with this one thing. Shelly actually just mentioned in chat, she said, just a comment that neuromonitoring needles have been found to be a culprit in the OR in my experience. So thank you so much for that feedback, Shelly. That's helpful. I
Oh,
think that
interesting.
pretty much wraps it up. Ray, if there's anything else you'd like to add, it's all floor is yours. But everybody that's attended and has stayed on here through the Q&A, we appreciate it. Ray, it is yours to close, sir.
Hey guys, again, appreciate your guys' time. Appreciate you guys joining in on our third edition here. I hope this was valuable to you guys. As Ken mentioned, we want to make these webinars more conversational more than anything. But we also, we want to provide guidance as well. We have solutions. Hope to see you guys at our next event. For those of you that are new, we do these every Tuesday, 1:35 to 1:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Obviously, we're a little over today, but that's okay. But our next topic of discussion is going to be about us. It's going to be another OSHA related topic. I promise you guys, we're going to be diving into the HIPAA stuff here soon. But this will be another OSHA topic. It's about essential safety precautions. Hope to see you guys there. We are going to be, everybody is going to be receiving an email with a link to register for this event as well. And obviously, if you guys have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Sunshine.